My boss just told me I couldn't keep up with the trends of the younger generation. Can you believe that? I said, staring at the message on my phone like it was a bad joke. It was a regular Monday morning, emails piling up, the hum of coworkers chatting nearby, nothing unusual. But that one line hit differently. No panic, just a quiet pause. I tucked my phone away, wondering if this was the start of something bigger. Around me, life carried on, unaware of what was about to unfold. By the way, before we dive in, tell me in the comments. Ever seen someone get the revenge they really deserved? I read all of them. Hey, while you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Let's continue. After that message from my boss, things didn't just settle. I'm Maya, 37, working in marketing for nearly 15 years. It's not like I was clueless about social media or trends. In fact, I was proud of being the one who quietly pulled off a viral campaign for a competitor last year, a campaign that shook the very company I'd been loyal to. But apparently, that didn't count for much anymore. The morning after the message, I walked into the office with my usual calm. I nodded at a few colleagues who greeted me with curious glances, whispers floating through the air. Did you hear what happened to Maya? Someone muttered by the coffee machine. I didn't bother replying. Why add fuel to the fire? Instead, I focused on my screen, scrolling through analytics and campaign ideas, anything to keep my mind steady. But beneath the surface, I was paying attention. Small things started to stand out. My emails were left unanswered more often. Meetings that used to include me were suddenly just between the younger team. Even the usually friendly receptionist seemed more distant, avoiding my eyes when I passed by. It wasn't loud or obvious, more like a slow, quiet retreat from the space I'd once felt part of. At home, the silence felt heavier. My daughter, just 8, asked if everything was okay when I came home later than usual. "Mom, are you upset?" she said, her small voice breaking the calm. I hugged her tight and said, "Just a little tired, sweetie, nothing you need to worry about." But inside, I was turning over every interaction, every look, trying to find the moment things began to shift. I started making notes, small things at first. The time my boss glanced at his phone when I mentioned new campaign ideas, the way the marketing lead barely looked at me in the team meetings, the quick change in tone when my name came up. It felt like a puzzle, pieces scattered but slowly coming together. In the evenings, I went over old messages, reread emails, and compared my recent work with what was being praised or ignored. I knew I wasn't the problem. So if it wasn't me, then what was this all about? One evening, while scrolling through my phone, I saw a notification, a headline from a marketing blog about staying relevant in a changing digital world. It wasn't targeted at me, but it stuck with me. I started bookmarking articles, watching new social media trends late into the night. If they thought I couldn't keep up, I was going to prove otherwise, quietly, on my own terms. I also reached out to a couple of old contacts, people I trusted, who still had their feet in the game. Over quick coffee breaks and short chats, I gathered insights on where the market was heading and what was really catching fire online. They didn't know my situation, but their excitement for the latest trends sparked something in me. I wasn't out yet. Not by a long shot. Meanwhile, I kept a close eye on my boss, observing his online activity and the way he spoke about younger employees. There were subtle dismissals, a few underhanded comments caught in group chats. It was clear I wasn't the only one feeling sidelined. But I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. I needed more. At work, I started testing little ideas, small campaign tweaks no one expected from me. Nothing flashy, just steady moves that showed I was still in the game. Sometimes, I caught a surprised glance or a quick nod from the team, almost like they were waiting to see what I'd do next. One afternoon, I found myself alone in the break room, staring out the window. The office buzzed faintly behind me, but inside I was quiet, planning. If they wanted to write me off as out of touch, I'd give them a show. But first, I had to prepare, learn more, gather proof, and wait for the right moment to step forward. As days passed, the tension settled into a steady rhythm, a quiet war beneath the surface. People kept their distance, conversations shifted around me, but I stayed calm. This wasn't about losing a job or proving a point to one person. It was about reclaiming my place in a world that kept moving, whether I kept up or not. And somewhere deep down, I knew I had one card left to play, one that no one saw coming. It happened on a Wednesday. Just like any other day, I sat at my desk, fingers poised over the keyboard, ready to dive into a new project. The office buzz was there, casual chatter, ringing phones, the usual hum. But then, the message popped up on my screen from my boss. After careful consideration, we've decided to end your contract effective immediately. Your role no longer fits with the direction the company is heading. I read it twice, blinked once, then leaned back in my chair. No shock, no sudden rush of panic or anger, just a quiet breath and a steady heart. Okay, I thought. If that's how it's going to be. A few coworkers glanced over, catching the flicker of my face as I read the message. A low murmur rippled through the room, whispers circling like restless ghosts. Someone near me whispered, "Did you see that? They really let Maya go." I kept typing, pretending I hadn't heard. Later in the break room, Jenny, a colleague who'd always been friendly, approached me with hesitant eyes. "Maya, are you okay?" she asked, voice soft. I smiled gently, better than okay, just surprised it came without a proper talk. She nodded, lowering her gaze. "It's sudden, I didn't see it coming either." I took a slow sip of water, weighing my words. "You know, it's strange. For months I've felt like I was invisible, ignored. It's almost a relief being out in the open now." Jenny looked at me, puzzled. "But what will you do next?" I shrugged lightly. "I'm not sure yet, but I'm not done. Not by a long shot." That evening at home, my daughter noticed the quiet determination in my eyes. "Mom, will you still help me with my school project tomorrow?" she asked, clutching a colorful notebook. "Of course," I replied, pulling her close. "Some things don't change no matter what happens." Despite the weight of the day, I felt a surprising calm settle over me. Losing the job wasn't the end, it was a challenge. A door closing somewhere, but maybe, just maybe, another one opening. The next morning, I went to the office to collect my things. The hallways felt colder, emptier. As I packed up, the marketing lead Alex stopped by with a tight smile. "I guess this is goodbye, huh?" he said, voice cautious. I looked up, meeting his eyes evenly. "Seems so." He hesitated. "Look, Maya, I know things haven't been easy lately, but maybe there's still a chance to work together in the future." I paused, sensing the weight behind his words. "Funny you say that," I replied, folding my favorite notebook. "Funny because I just saw what you're doing for the competitor's campaign. Impressive." Alex blinked, caught off guard. "We're just trying to keep up with the times." "Yeah," I said softly. "I guess sometimes the person who knows the trends best is the one you push aside." He didn't reply. Instead, he nodded slowly and turned away. Walking out, I noticed a few glances from the younger team members, some curious, some uncertain. But I didn't look back. I stepped into the fresh air, the city moving around me, alive and full of possibilities. That night, alone in my apartment, I reread the messages and emails I'd saved, little hints of respect, veiled compliments, even a message from Alex, the boss's right hand, that said, "Maybe we underestimated you." It was enough to fuel a quiet fire inside me. The next few days were a blur of calls, messages, and brief meetings. No big announcements, no dramatic outbursts, just steady moves, connections reignited, new ideas shared. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I opened it, heart steady. "Let's talk about collaborating, you've got skills we need." I smiled, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Well, isn't this interesting?" The message was simple, but it stirred a mix of emotions, curiosity, caution, and a spark of something else, opportunity. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I let the phone sit on the table as I leaned back, letting the silence fill the room. This wasn't just about a collaboration offer. It felt like an invitation wrapped in an apology or maybe even a test. But I wasn't the same person who'd quietly accepted being sidelined. Over the next days, I moved carefully. My mornings began with scanning the digital traces left behind. Company announcements, shifts in marketing strategies, even casual posts on social media from former colleagues. Patterns emerged, almost like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. One afternoon, I met up with Mia, an old friend and a whiz with data analytics, at a small cafe tucked away from the city's noise. We spoke quietly, fingers occasionally tapping on phones or laptops as we shared what we'd found. "So your old company really is scrambling," Mia said, scrolling through graphs on her tablet. "Look at this drop in engagement after you left. It's more than just numbers, it's the vibe. People are confused, maybe even restless." I nodded, sipping my tea. I knew I wasn't imagining things. The way they pushed me out felt personal, but it was also about control. Mia looked up. "You have to be careful. If you want to get back in the game, you'll need more than just insight. You'll need proof." "Proof of what?" I asked, leaning forward. "That you were the one who made the real difference. That the campaigns you created weren't just luck, but smart, strategic moves." That night, back in my apartment, I started sorting through every scrap I had: old drafts, emails with creative briefs, even the feedback from clients and team members. I printed out reports, highlighted key achievements, and made a timeline showing how the viral campaign unfolded. My phone buzzed with a message from Alex, the marketing lead. "I'm watching your moves. Impressive." I didn't reply. Instead, I took a screenshot and saved it. There was also the matter of the competitor's campaign I'd masterminded. It had been a secret weapon, one I'd kept quiet about to avoid burning bridges. But now it was a powerful piece of my story. I dug out the case studies, the social media analytics, and client testimonials. I even reached out to a few contacts there, carefully asking about current strategies without raising suspicion. One evening, my daughter looked up from her homework and asked, "Mom, are you going to win?" I smiled, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "I'm not just going to win, sweetie. I'm going to make sure they remember who I am." The next morning, I organized everything into a sleek presentation, not just facts and figures, but a story of growth, innovation, and resilience. I wasn't preparing to beg for my old job back. I was preparing to show I was worth more than just a trend follower. At work, a few former colleagues reached out quietly, dropping hints about internal struggles and changes. One message stood out: they're realizing they made a mistake, be ready. In response, I drafted a few proposals, ideas that built on my previous work, but pushed further into new trends. Interactive campaigns, influencer partnerships, immersive digital experiences. Nothing flashy, just solid, actionable plans that made sense in today's world. I tested some of these ideas on my own channels, watching the engagement climb. Small wins, but important. It wasn't about grand gestures, it was about steady proof of relevance and skill. Meanwhile, the messages from my old company grew more frequent but still vague. "Let's discuss possibilities," one read. Another, "Your insight is valuable." Through it all, I stayed grounded. I wasn't going to be pulled back just to be pushed aside again. I needed to set the terms. One afternoon, while walking through the park with my daughter, I took out my phone and replied to the message that had started it all. "I'm open to talk, but only if this is about respect and real collaboration." The reply was quick: "Agreed, let's meet." I didn't rush, I knew the game now. It wasn't about reacting but controlling the pace. I spent the days leading up to the meeting reviewing my presentation, practicing my points, and reminding myself of the value I brought. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early at a neutral cafe, no office politics, no distractions. When Alex walked in, his confident smile was there, but I could see a flicker of something else: respect, maybe even a bit of caution. We talked not just about campaigns or trends, but about vision, about where marketing was headed, and how I saw my role in shaping it. I listened more than I spoke, but when I did, my words were calm and clear. "You pushed me out because you thought I couldn't keep up," I said softly, "but I've been preparing quietly. I've grown, learned, and I'm ready to bring something new, not just follow the trends, but create them." He nodded slowly. "I underestimated you, that's clear now." I smiled, not with triumph, but with steady confidence. "Then let's see where we go from here." Walking away from that meeting, I felt a quiet power settling inside me. I wasn't just waiting for a chance anymore. I was shaping it. Every email I sent, every idea I shared was a step toward reclaiming my place, not as someone trying to fit in, but as a force to be reckoned with. And for the first time in a long while, the future looked bright. The day of the real confrontation came sooner than I expected. It wasn't in a courtroom or a formal office, but at a strategy meeting, the kind I hadn't been invited to in months. The room was sleek glass walls letting in the harsh city light, the buzz of conversations filling the air. I sat at the far end of the long table, watching as familiar faces looked up, surprised to see me. Alex was at the head, his usual confident smile replaced by something sharper, a mix of respect and calculation. "Glad you could join us, Maya," he said, voice steady. "We've been reviewing the current campaign results, and frankly, we're facing challenges." I nodded, letting the words hang between us. Challenges are inevitable, the question is how we face them. The marketing lead shifted in his chair, glancing around before adding, "Some of your previous ideas are still shaping our strategies. It's clear you had a strong influence." I met his gaze evenly, strong enough to go unnoticed or strong enough to shake the company. There was a brief silence, the kind that feels heavy, waiting for someone to break it. Alex leaned forward. "You left under difficult circumstances, we made mistakes, but now we need to move forward with you." I let that sink in. This wasn't just an apology or a desperate plea. It was a recognition of my value, the one they had ignored for too long. Before we discuss moving forward, I said carefully, there's something you should know. I opened my laptop, pulling up the presentation I'd refined over weeks, the campaign timelines, analytics, testimonials, and even the competitors' viral campaign metrics. Eyes flicked over the screen, some narrowing, others widening. I explained the strategy behind each move, the data supporting every decision. This isn't about nostalgia, I said firmly. It's about proven results and innovation. A younger team member whispered to Alex, I didn't realize Maya was behind that campaign. It changed everything. I caught the comment with a quiet smile. That campaign wasn't a fluke. It was strategy, creativity, and understanding the audience. Alex nodded slowly. You've made it clear, we underestimated your ability to adapt. Can you forgive that? I paused. Forgiveness wasn't what I was after. This isn't about forgiveness, I said calmly. It's about moving forward on new terms. I want to lead projects, drive change, and be respected, not sidelined. There was a brief murmur of agreement from around the table. The tone had shifted. The conversation was no longer about past mistakes but future possibilities. Then, the unexpected happened. One of the senior managers, someone who had been quietly skeptical all along, spoke up. If Maya's ideas are so vital, why was she pushed out in the first place? Doesn't that show a flaw in leadership? The room stiffened. Alex's face tightened, but I didn't flinch. That's a fair question, I said, locking eyes with the manager. The answer is simple, fear of change. My ideas challenged comfort zones, but growth requires discomfort. A few nods followed, the tension easing. I continued, I'm not here to dwell on what happened. I'm here because I know what this company can become, and I'm ready to help make it happen. The meeting ended with an informal agreement. I would be consulted on upcoming campaigns, with opportunities to pitch new projects. It wasn't a full return yet, but a clear step forward. Walking out of the room, I felt a mixture of relief and determination. I turned the tide quietly but decisively. Later that day, Alex sent a message. Welcome back, Maya. Let's shake things up. I smiled, typing back, only if we do it right. That evening, sitting at my kitchen table, I reflected on how calm and controlled I'd been. No shouting matches, no desperate pleas, just facts, confidence, and a clear vision. My daughter ran in, clutching a drawing she'd made at school, a rocket ship soaring through stars. Look, Mom. It's going to fly higher than ever. I took the picture, feeling a quiet pride. That's exactly what I planned to do. And I meant it. The confrontation wasn't loud or explosive, but it was a turning point. I'd reclaimed my power not by force, but by preparation and quiet strength. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like it was mine to shape. After that meeting, things started to move faster, but on my terms. I wasn't rushing in to reclaim a throne. I was planting seeds, watching them take root. The next morning, I sat down with a small, trusted group from the marketing team. Some were old colleagues, others new faces curious about what I had to offer. I laid out my ideas clearly without fanfare or overpromise. We need to connect differently now, authenticity, interactive content, real conversations, I said. The younger generation isn't just about trends, they want meaning. One of the younger team members, Sarah, looked up with a mix of skepticism and hope. You think these ideas will actually work? We've been trying similar stuff, but it feels like we're missing something. I smiled gently. It's not just the idea, it's how we build it step by step, testing, listening, adjusting. I've been watching what works in real time. Over the next few weeks, I helped lead the rollout of a pilot campaign targeting niche social platforms that were just starting to gain traction. It was risky, budgets were tight, and the company's trust in me was still tentative. But I stayed steady, supporting the team and making small course corrections when needed. The early results surprised even the skeptics. Engagement numbers climbed steadily, shares increased, and the feedback from customers was positive. It wasn't a viral explosion overnight, but it was solid growth. One afternoon, Sarah caught me in the hallway, a bright smile on her face. Maya, I have to admit I didn't expect this to work so well. Your approach, it's different. I nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. Different is good. It means we're not stuck. Meanwhile, messages from the company's leadership grew more frequent, no longer vague but direct invitations to contribute ideas and lead projects. The shift was subtle but real. Alex reached out one evening. Great job with the pilot campaign, the board's impressed, keep pushing. I typed back, thanks, it's about steady progress, not just flash. At home, my daughter noticed my lighter mood. Mom, you're smiling more these days. I ruffled her hair. I'm learning to fly again, kiddo. The changes weren't just professional. I found myself more confident, more willing to take small risks, and more open to collaboration. The isolation I'd felt before was fading, replaced by a cautious optimism. Still, I stayed grounded. I knew the path ahead would have challenges, but for now, the momentum was mine. One evening, as I reviewed the latest campaign stats, my phone buzzed with a message from an unexpected source, a former competitor who had admired my previous work. Heard about your comeback. If you ever want to collaborate, I'm here. I smiled, fingers poised over the keyboard. It's good to know some things never change. That night I sat by the window, looking out at the city lights. The road ahead was long, but for the first time it felt navigable. I wasn't just reacting to the world around me, I was shaping it. And that made all the difference. The momentum I'd built wasn't just shifting my world, it was starting to shake theirs. At the company, changes rippled quietly but unmistakably. The once confident and dismissive tone from leadership grew more cautious. I heard through the grapevine that my old boss was facing criticism for the decision to push me out. Rumors swirled about missed opportunities and missteps in recent campaigns. One afternoon, while catching up with a former colleague over lunch, I learned more. "They're scrambling," she whispered, glancing around. "Board members aren't happy. Sales are slipping, and people are questioning the direction." I nodded, listening but careful not to say much. It wasn't my fight anymore, at least not directly, but it was hard not to feel a sense of quiet vindication. At the same time, my own world was growing in ways I hadn't expected. The pilot campaigns I'd helped launch were expanding. New projects came my way, bigger budgets, and even the chance to lead a small creative team. I was no longer just the outsider with good ideas, I was part of the engine driving change. One evening, as I wrapped up a late meeting with my team, Sarah stayed behind. "Maya," she said, voice low, "I just wanted to say thank you for showing us what's possible." I smiled, tired but genuinely moved. We're all part of this, it's about learning and pushing together. At home, the changes were even more profound. My daughter's school project about perseverance and growth suddenly felt personal. We talked about resilience, about standing tall when the world tries to push you down. One night, my phone buzzed with a message that surprised me from my former boss. "I'd like to discuss a potential partnership. Can we meet?" I stared at the screen for a moment. Part of me wanted to say no, but another part saw it as the closing of a circle, a chance to redefine the narrative. I typed back, "I'm open to a conversation, let's see where it goes." That meeting was quiet but charged with meaning. He wasn't the same man who had dismissed me so casually. There was humility, maybe even regret, but I was clear. "This isn't about old grudges," I said. "It's about recognizing value and moving forward in a way that works for both of us." He nodded, agreeing. "You've changed the game, I'm ready to listen." Outside the walls of boardrooms and offices, the world was shifting too. Friends and family noticed the new energy around me, the confidence that had quietly grown. At a weekend brunch, my sister said, "You seem different, Maya, stronger." I laughed softly. Maybe I just finally stopped trying to fit where I wasn't wanted. Her smile was warm. "Well, it's working." Meanwhile, the company's competitor, the one I'd helped with that viral campaign, reached out again. "We want to explore a joint project," the message read. It was a reminder that the industry was small but full of possibilities. My past, once a source of tension, was now a bridge to new opportunities. Financially, things were stabilizing too. The new projects brought steady income, and I began saving for a future that felt less uncertain. More importantly, I felt seen, not just for what I'd done, but for who I was becoming. The old boss's influence was waning. His decisions were scrutinized more closely, and whispers of a shakeup circulated. I didn't celebrate this quietly, it wasn't personal revenge. It was the natural course of things when strength and vision take root. One evening, as I sat by the window reflecting on how far I'd come, I realized something important. The biggest victory wasn't the return to the company or the projects won. It was the transformation within, the resilience, the calm strength that carried me through. And as I looked ahead, I knew the story was far from over. The past no longer felt like a shadow looming over me. Instead, it was a quiet foundation, a reminder of where I'd been and how far I'd come. I woke up one morning feeling different, lighter somehow. Not because everything was perfect, but because I was in control again. The offers kept coming, not out of desperation, but because people finally saw the real value I brought to the table. My daughter bounded into the room, her school project in hand, eyes bright and proud. Mom, look. I wrote about being brave. I smiled, pulling her close. That's the best lesson anyone can learn. At work, I wasn't just a participant anymore. I was a leader shaping the conversation, helping others find their voices too. The projects I guided were no longer just campaigns. They were stories, connections, real impact that resonated beyond the screen. One afternoon, over coffee, a close friend asked, "How did you do it?" Stay so calm, so sure, even when everything was falling apart. I thought about those long months of quiet planning, the countless small victories that never made headlines, and the moments I almost gave up but didn't. I stopped trying to prove something to others, I said softly. Instead, I focused on knowing my own worth and what I wanted to build not just for me, but for those who trusted me. The future still held uncertainties. New challenges and unexpected twists would come, that much was certain. But now I knew I had the strength, wisdom, and clarity to meet them head-on. In fact, I was already thinking about the next steps, maybe starting my own agency, or partnering with people who valued creativity and integrity over trends and fleeting popularity. The possibilities were wide open, and that felt incredibly freeing. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside my window, I typed a message to a trusted colleague. "Ready for the next adventure." Her quick reply came back with a smiley face. "Always." I leaned back, letting a calm smile spread across my face. This wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. No longer defined by what others said or did to me, I was creating my own path, one grounded in resilience, respect, and quiet confidence. And if there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that sometimes, the biggest setbacks are just the start of something far better, something you never saw coming but were ready for all along.